Canada is the latest country to commit to recognizing a Palestinian state. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. There are now more than 24 nations that plan to back a two-state solution to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced support for a state led by the Palestinian Authority under certain conditions,
including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state.
Israel supporters say the PA shares some of the same goals as Hamas.
Effectively, what they want is a state as a means to destroying the state of Israel. This is part of the intentions belonging to Fatah, which is the leading faction of the PLO that run the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah. It's the same goals as Hamas in their covenant charter they wrote in 1987, calls for the destruction of the state of Israel and also Jews around the world.
President Trump says Canada's decision threatens ongoing trade negotiations with the United States. Posting on Truth Social, he wrote, Prime Minister Carney's support for a Palestinian state would make it, quote, very hard to reach a deal. Also in Washington, the Senate last night rejected 2 resolutions by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders to block U.S. weapon sales to the state of Israel. A majority of Democrats, Gordon, voted in favor of those resolutions.
And what France, what Great Britain, and what Canada are trying to do here. And to hear a leader in Canada express, well, the Palestinian Authority is going to have to fundamentally change. Abbas has to have elections, which he hasn't had in forever. It's like they don't know the history. Here's the history. Under the Bush administration, our State Department believed that somehow or other the Arab Spring would spread into Gaza, and that the Gazans were longing for democracy and for liberty and for our hope and a future for their children and their grandchildren, and they wanted to live in peace. And so he strong-armed Israel into withdrawing from Gaza, and all the Jews were evacuated, and that's what happened. So now Gaza is no longer under the control of the IDF, and they hold elections. Who do the people of Gaza elect into power? Well, they elect Hamas. What does Hamas do? It takes out all of the political opposition. Every member of the Fatah party was killed. Some of them were thrown off the top of buildings to their death. That's what happened. And then once they solidified absolute control, they canceled all future elections and then used all of the international aid to build tunnels and rockets to attack Israel. You cannot look at this situation in some kind of vacuum or with rose-colored glasses that there's some future Palestinian state that wants to live at peace with Israel. It's just not the reality on the ground. You know, Abbas canceled elections, too. He essentially created himself as president for life and using his own security forces to enforce that. To say all of that is now irrelevant and isn't going to be the future of the Palestinian people is ignoring what they have done in the past. And what they have done in the past, going all the way back to 1948, is absolutely refuse a second state. They have never tried to create a Palestinian state. They aren't trying to build the basic infrastructure of what's needed to have a Palestinian state. Let's recognize what they really want. They want it all, and they want to drive Israel into the sea. They want a one-state solution and no Jews allowed. That's what they've been trying to do for decades. Can we please believe them?